Morning.
Morning.
So we have a very interesting topic today, and you can see behind me is a man dressed in orange on a photo on my wall. And that is a sannyas robe of a holy personality within India. They usually wear orange. And so I thought he would join us this morning for this concept, for this topic of guru. I'm going to jump right in and go right to within the portal of the book and read from that. Part of the reason I read from the book is because first I'm trying to promote it. I want people to understand what's there and how well it's produced, and also because if I could say it any better, I would have been there. It took a long time to craft every word of this book, all my work as a writer. I don't settle for anything really unless it's exactly what I want to say and how I want to say it. Not I want, how it should be said when it's accurate and true. So, excuse me, get that morning throat clearing a little bit. Again, we'll see if the power stays on. So I'm going to jump right into a passage from the book, and it's going to be a few pages, so it'll take about 5 or 10 minutes. And then we're going to we're going to elaborate on this concept, and I want you to ask questions because this is a very misunderstood topic. And the best way usually to get these things cleared up is when people ask questions and we let the conversation and this class take a life of its own. We let it breathe. Excuse me. I want to clear this out before I begin to read. That's a little better for now, anyway. I want to hold it up, but that's not easy to do. It's a heavy book. You get a lot for what you pay for. Chapter 25, Guardian Angels, a Playful Saint. As soon as a devotee is willing to go to the ends of the earth for spiritual enlightenment, his guru appears nearby. Paramahansa Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi. I was sleeping in the stupor of spiritual ignorance since eternity, but the grace of a Rasic saint has awakened me. Kripalu, Siddhant Madhuri, Pad Sankirtan. God is unknowable. All religions and spiritual philosophies agree on this. God is ineffable and exists beyond our capacity of understanding unless he imparts his grace. With his grace, a yogi, devotee can know, merge, and become one with God. Occasionally, an avatar arrives not to establish a new covenant as the Christ did, but to establish the eternal covenant, which has always existed in every space of this multiverse. The reasons, I'm going to pause for a moment on that. I refer to the new covenant because that's an accurate term. He was considered the new covenant because I'm not sure if you guys are aware. You understand that term?
Uh, not
Yeshua is the new covenant. The old covenant, of course, was the Ten Commandments and the laws of Moses and all those kind of things. The new covenant was this whole reformation of no, you don't need to follow any of this so much as just love God, obey God, and be with God, and just have faith in God. That was the new covenant. So it used to be circumcision and all these other kind of rituals and qualifications to align you with God. And the new covenant was we're going to throw all that away, and it's simply about from your heart. And that is kind of the Rasic bhakti path too, of surrender and just love. The reasons the God power avatars are uncountable, but one of the most valuable for we stupid humans is so we can directly associate with the divine in a personal relationship. That's all italicized, put some emphasis on it because I think that's very important. It's pretty impossible to love God when he appears as a burning bush or pillar of fire. Avatars, that is, gurus, are God making himself or herself accessible in personified form so we can see, speak to, hear, and serve. My own personal guru, the enlightened divine personality avatar, whom I followed since 2007, is in charge of my particular circumstances. Yeah, this guy. There have been many, including, and this was, of course, well before my death event. There have been many, including the Buddha and the Christ. Some are eternally divine, but may appear as ordinary people. Once you begin to associate with them, you may sense there's something extraordinary about them. True avatars conceal their divinity, but over time, it becomes revealed within your heart. I pause sometime because I'm kind of blown away at these words myself. They didn't really feel like they come from me. I read them kind of like, wow, that's really good. That's so accurate. I'm like, oh yeah, that came from my keypad. I do the same thing when I'm reading anybody's work. When I see something that's really profound and true, I'm like, I pause from when I'm like, wow, that's a rare thing that somebody can do that. Some remain secluded to radiate grace to regions of the planets, while others come forth, interact with humanity, and illuminate the paths of true spirit. I now know the saffron ochre presence when I died was my personal teacher and guide, guru. Orange robes or dhoti kurta are the traditional dress for spiritual personalities in India, like the white collar for Catholic priests and jerseys for athletes. It is so we can recognize them as such. I was too disabled to see his divine eyes and face, and I think I lacked worthiness, but his boundless presence provided the love and comfort I felt. There's a pause because that's emotional. Again, I feel that my writing is infused with that emotion. I guarantee you, when I wrote that sentence, I was kind of overwhelmed too. And I feel that that transmits and translates into the words on the page themselves. I think that my energy and my emotion is infused in them. No one else can save me. I don't want to be saved. I want to move on. Not only has Guru been present through these ordeals, he's the architect and the engineer. He's in charge, but I kept getting in the way of his work by trying to improve my life and restore it to what it had been before. Scott died. It's time to move on. Let the architect and engineer have free reign. Architect, engineer being capitalized, referring to him. Let go and let Guru. What is a guru? The word is a title meaning he who chases away samsara. A true guru is an enlightened, realized soul beyond material consciousness. I often use the term true guru with a capital T and capital G to differentiate between regular gurus and real deal ones. Our world is full of frauds, fakes, and even those who are well-intended but lack the full qualifications to fulfill their title. And I don't care if that's your auto mechanic, your school teacher, for God's sakes, tech support. Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot of people representing themselves as being able to do things that they just cannot do. Any teacher of spiritual path, knowledge, and practice deserves the title of guru, but in lowercase. I am using capitals to denote when I'm referring to regular things and genuine things. Genuine referring to their transcended, enlightened state and status. They are one with divinity. I accept Yeshua the Christ, Gautam Buddha, and few others as genuine, realized masters. Synonyms for a true guru are Parush, cosmic being, Mahapurush, great cosmic being, and Jivatman, supreme soul. Swami means master or teacher, and yogi is a yoga practitioner. Maharaj is a great king or lord, and Mahatma is a great soul. It is customary to add the prefix Ji for informal affection. An Indian child may refer to his father as Papaji. You may refer to your friend Bob as Babji. We use the Ji suffix to referential titles too. Swami Ji is not just a Swami, but an informal and more affectionate term for a Swami. Maharaji is a more intimate, less formal address of Maharaj. God. Oh, cool. Now that we have a little vocab out of the way, let's briefly discuss what true ones are and what they are not, so you can easily grasp the context of these roles as our story moves along. Again, this is kind of why the book became so big, because this chapter was largely because I knew going forward with the story at this point, I was going to have to get into and share why I was making the decision I was making, what was happening to me. And to leave out the guru concept and the guru role was impossible. I mean, that'd be like me saying that, oh, well, and then I woke up, I could walk again without talking about the doctors and the medical process. It's, when I see movies or books that do that, I'm like, well, we can't just skip over that shit. How am I supposed to know what's going on? How do I feel connected to it? So I realized at some point kind of like the fact that the glossary of terms and the underground stream chapter is chapter 7 and 8, not in the beginning of the book, because I want to launch people into the story. I want to launch you into the experience. I want you to have this. And I felt that, again, beginning with a glossary makes it seem like academic. And I didn't want people to have that sense and that feeling. I wanted to connect to it emotionally first, and then as needed. So you would see, for example, that I refer to yoga as yoga in the first third of the book. And after the glossary term, when I describe that yoga is the actual pronunciation and correct spelling, the A is an affectation of the British government. So from then on, I generally use yoga instead of karma in the first part. Then after that, I use karma. So again, the order of things was very carefully selected. This chapter was not planned. None of them were. It became evident as I got into this part of the book and the story that I cannot tell what's about to happen without explaining the role of my spiritual master and guru being involved. It wasn't possible. And so to simply say, my guru, people get such a generalized term that's misinterpreted. So I already knew that half this world, three quarters, 7/8 of this world doesn't understand the term. They think they do, as with so many things, but they don't understand it. And so, as again, this book became so big because I'm trying to explain what these things truly mean. And again, I can't tell how many times I had a conversation with somebody about, let's say, for example, karma. Somebody would say, "Well, that's not what I think it is. That's not how I see it." And I'm like, what does it matter what you think it is? There's a definition of the word, where it comes from in Sanskrit. Let's go to where it originates from and discuss it with them who created it or who realized, who revealed it. You can't just add your own definition of things. That'd be like saying, well, I don't call that a sofa. I call that a chair. Well, it's not a chair. We'll have to agree on certain labels. Otherwise, we're all confused. Now we're at the Tower of Babel, all walking around confused. So again, labels and words are sacred. They're important because we all have to agree. Otherwise, the fact that you call it a chair and I call it a sofa, we're going to have some problems. If you're calling dinner lunch and I'm calling lunch dinner, we're going to have some problems. So I'm a stickler as a polymath, as a somewhat cerebral person. I'm a stickler. I want to use the original terms. And I am personally, as a stupid human, grossly offended by the British Empire as they colonized the planet back in the day. And you were changing things deliberately to try to, and again, same thing with the organized religions. What they did is they took the original truths and then they modified them to make them their own. We're going to get into some of that. And I am a great, great admirer of Yeshua the Christ. More than admirer. He's a guru. He's a master. So don't think that I'm going to go trash on these things at all. I'm going to trash on organized religion probably pretty well, but the origins of them, not at all. Continuing. A true guru, oh boy, is invested in your spiritual welfare and journey, and the Akashic agents are your guru's representatives that interact and facilitate. I have a guru, and so do you. Although you may not be aware of it, but you do have one. We all do. We all have a personal divine associate, personal to us, a divine personality. A guru is devoted to and protects many souls, but each of us has only one guru. He or she watches over us in each and every lifetime we incarnate and in between too. Our guru is always ready and waiting to appear in our lives when we turn our hearts and minds to spiritual matters instead of worldly ones. Again, there's so many sentences as I wrote this book that I'm like, I want to put it in big, giant, bold type. It's like, if you get nothing else out of this, take this one home, put this in golden letters, tattoo it on your forehead, and that's a critical one. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. But again, there's so many because, again, this was divinely inspired, not out of my own mind. Our guru is ready. Again, it sounds so simple and basic, but what's contained in that sentence is volumes of knowledge and insight. Our guru is always ready and waiting to appear in our lives when we turn our hearts and minds to spiritual matters instead of worldly ones. They're separate. Worldly and spiritual are completely separate. Keep them that way. And as I often quote Yeshua, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. Him very clearly telling his disciples as they're rabble rousing, trying to get him into, somebody was trying to dare him and kind of bait him into saying something controversial and political, cause of trouble, because they didn't want to pay tax. They wanted a political statement. So they were told they had to pay some tax at the end of their little town. And his disciples and some other followers came around. They're like, this is bullshit. We don't want to do this. Like, tell us what to do, master. And they're kind of like bait him. They're hoping he would say like, yeah, screw them, man. Don't pay any taxes. Screw the government, right? Because they're looking for a rebel political leader. That's partly what they were looking for. And Yeshua in his infinite divine wisdom, simple, again, as always, so elegant, simply says, look at that coin in your hand that they want. Whose face on that coin? And they said, Caesar's. Okay, then render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Render to God what is God's. Keep them separate. Again, so much layers of profound wisdom in that simple instruction. And it, as divine personalities do, what they do is they give you all this information in something that's so short and sweet. And you don't have to like think much about it. That's such a straight statement. Render to Caesar's, render unto the world was the world's, render to God was God's. The way a guru becomes your guru is simple. It happens when you mindfully and heartfully accept them as your guru and devote your spirit to them. That's it. There is no formal ceremony or application process. I like this axiom very much. Your guru is as close to you as you are now, and they are waiting with open arms to receive you. All you have to do is go to them. By the way, when I say them in print, that's capitalized. When I refer to them, a true guru or Mahapurush is a divinely realized being. Their souls grace the earth. Their presence is not bound by material consciousness or desires because they have transcended them. Since they have no worldly desires, they are entirely free to impart wisdom, love, and grace selflessly and without cause. If they have any desire at all, it is only to grace the souls with love and truth. They exist in a state of complete and total self-contentment, peace and bliss. We can't relate. We can't relate. These are very abstract concepts to us. We cannot relate. We experience happiness, and I feel that I've had many moments of what I would refer to as ecstasy or bliss, but I also accept that what I'm experiencing is a fraction of what the overall spectrum of it is. And mine has been so overwhelming that I've almost lost consciousness sometimes. They are omniscient and omnipresent. They have access to all knowledge all the time and are not confined to the eternal present of the here and now. They are one with the divine, yet they appear and behave like mortal folks. They conceal their divinity. There are two classes of gurus, sadhana siddhi saints and nitya siddhi saints. And again, I'm not trying to ignore and neglect the Western views of things by using the Sanskrit and Eastern ones. It's just that the Eastern system is so complete. They have names for this. The Western ones never did. Again, the reason so many of us turn to some of the Eastern paths because it's not relying on faith or magical thinking. It's all explained with words and definitions, and it's given to you in a very logical and reasonable way, along with the magic and the beauty of it. So turn this whatever word you want. Again, in Sanskrit, there are two classes of gurus, and they're called sadhana siddhi saints and nitya siddhi saints. Sadhana siddhi saints were once like you and me. They were human, embodied souls with minds bound to karmas and material phenomena of Maya or samsara. Through sadhana, or spiritual practice and surrender, they became enlightened and completed their soul's journey to divinity. Sadhana means spiritual practice, like yoga, and siddhi means enlightened or attained. Therefore, sadhana siddhi saints have attained enlightenment through sadhana. Nitya siddhis are souls that have never been under the veil of material phenomena. They are eternal associates. The word nitya means eternal. Sadhana Siddhi and Nitya Siddhi. If we can become God realized in this lifetime, or enlightened or liberated, we become Sadhana Siddhi saints. Nitya Siddhi, again, is divine personalities that have never been under the bondage of Maya. Let's convert this into Western terms and explore it. The reason I stopped there is because the next thing that I go into is, here's a surprise. Did you know, kind of thing, that literally I say, did you know? I make it kind of fun, that Siddhartha Gautam Buddha is considered by Buddhists to be a sadhana personality, somebody that was mortal like you and me and became enlightened. Sanatana Dharmas, Hindus, all accept the Buddha as a divine personality. We have no problem with that. He is also part of our pantheon, you could say. Yet we don't view him as a sadhana siddhi. We accept him as a nitya siddhi. We feel that he was dispatched to earth, as all saints are. Saint, again, capitalized term, as in a realized being, not just something that somebody put together a formula for and said they're therefore a saint. It's not an election process, like the Pope. So, Sanatana Dharmas, Hindus, accept and have Siddhartha Gautam Buddha as part of their pantheon of saints and gurus and masters. The difference is that they feel that he, as an avatar, was a Nitya Siddhi saint. He was dispatched to earth at a time when he was needed to bring a alternate path to liberation and enlightenment. Because at that time, there was a shift in consciousness. Even though it's a long time ago and it was in northern India, there was a shift in consciousness and people were turning away from the God concept and were more open to receiving the agnostic concept. And Buddhism is actually agnostic. It's not a religion or spiritual path at all. It's agnostic. And that's very important. Again, it's ironic and strange to me that Buddhists themselves often talk about it as a spiritual kind of thing, but it's not. It's agnostic, which is full of contradictions. The Buddha is assaulted by demons and assisted by goddesses, and yet there's no acknowledgement of the God power truly in the Buddhist path and in the practices. Anyway, so this little differentiation that I and many people accept the Buddha as a legitimate historical personality that was realized. And again, the difference is I feel that he was an avatar, a divine associate, eternal associate, never under the spell of Maya, but he, as most saints do, took on the role of a human being. He displays himself to be a human. And again, this is largely because we can't truly know the reasons and intentions of a saint. They're divine mind and they're beyond us. We can have some information. So one of the reasons for this is because when we look at someone like Siddhartha Gautam that did what he did, which if you follow his life is just astounding, what he pulled off, what he was capable of. And it's overwhelming. I mean, I read that in my younger years as a spiritual seeker and was like, I can't do that. I can't go live in a cave for 6 months. I can't go sit beneath a tree for 49 days. I can't. I'm not capable of that. So it was self-defeating in many ways. Rather than feeling motivated, which I certainly was, I was also simultaneously like, well, that's beyond me. I mean, I'm nowhere near that level. That's like, yeah, I'm going to go try out for a professional baseball team today. I don't think so. Or tennis. I'm going to enter to the U.S. Open for tennis competition. No. Even at my best, I was a 4-0 player. Pretty good, but nowhere near the 6-0 guys that are killing it. I mean, and listen, I played a guy once that was 4-5. That's all, 4-5, and I was a 4. The distance between this qualification is so massive that literally he was standing still. He barely even moved on the court, and I couldn't return any of his shit, none of it. And he was just one half a rank higher than me. So divine personalities will usually conceal their divinity because otherwise they do this for our benefit. Because otherwise we look at them and say, well, that's good for you, but I'm not you. I mean, I'm not a Christ. I'm not God's chosen child. I'm not anything. I'm just a stupid human. And that is discouraging. So most avatars that interact with the public as gurus, masters, saviors, etc., do so because they want us to see that even though they're different than me, they're still flesh and blood. This is why, and this is explained very clearly again in the Vedas and Upanishads, this is why avatars take on human form, personified form, so that we can relate to them in a personal and intimate way. Again, pillar of fire, burning bush. I'm like, well, that's great, but I mean, that's just the almighty, intimidating. Oh my God, what the hell do I do with that? And again, the new covenant, the Christ, Yeshua. The whole point of this is again, what happens is the new covenant is that prior to his arrival, which again, the Christians feel that this was the Savior that was predicted within the Old Testament, the returning of David, etc., on and on and on. And again, the Jewish tradition and religion is like, no, it wasn't. It's our religion, man. We get to say who it was and who it wasn't. And again, the point is that the new covenant, never mind all of the dogmas, all of the rituals and ceremonies and formalities that you're to do to attain closeness with God. Christ says, Yeshua says, believe in me, surrender to me, and I'll take care of it. That's all you got to do. Now, I departed a little bit from the sadhana nityā siddhi. The question is, obviously, with Christians, he is not only a nityā siddhi saint, he's the only one. This part is what has caused a lot of strife and trouble in the world. Again, the open system versus closed system with spiritual versus Eastern spiritual philosophies and paths. The open system is whatever takes you to God, all roads lead to Rome. Whatever takes you there, do it. But do it with all your heart and do it 100%. Not 99.9, but 100%. But they're all equal. So what they're saying is that all saints are one with God. They're all equal. No one's better than the other. They all represent different aspects of God, but they're all one being. So if you sin against one, then you sin against them all. If you follow one, you're following them all. If you surrender to one, you're surrendering them all. They're all one. And they're one with God. So again, the question becomes sadhana siddhi or nityā siddhi? Was Yeshua a sadhana siddhi saint, a person that became enlightened, or as the Christians believe, he's not only a nityā siddhi saint, eternal associate, but is the only one? And again, in no way, shape, or form do I accept that he's the only one. That's, again, where the big division between East and West comes, is that, and for us, it becomes rather obvious. The email that for this announcement was, I think it was this one, is my guru, this guy, and the guy below him, my Swami teacher, dressed as Santa Claus. Was that in the email today? Yesterday?
I didn't.
Huh?
I saw the email you sent out like last week, but I didn't.
That one may be coming out tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe coming out tomorrow. Anyway, because my point is that as I shared this photo, is that they're not against, they also worship, praise, honor, admire, encourage association with Yeshua the Christ. Any and all, and again, same thing in Sign and Dharmas. They don't say like, well, don't, no, the Buddha's all wrong. He's not, there's definitely a division. The Buddha does not teach what is truly authentic, genuine, pure, scriptural, Vedas, Upanishad stuff. So in that sense, there's a division. But again, they realize that there's a reason for that. He came to people that were rejecting that and still needed something that was pure and genuine. So he didn't, it's not that he was saying anything against God. There was no God. He just was leaving that part out. That's all it was, just omitting it.
I always thought Buddhism was perfect for people just coming out of atheism.
Yeah, it is exactly. That's exactly what his avatar was about. His mission, again, the Sons and Dharmas, is that his mission was just that, to show that, again, a lot of people were struggling with the God concept. And again, Shankaracharya did the same thing. Shankaracharya teaches the liberation path. It's virtually identical to Buddhism. The difference is Shankaracharya includes the God concept, doesn't reject it. And again, the Buddhist path doesn't reject it and say that's bad, that's going to mess you up. It just leaves it out. So it doesn't really address it at all. The Buddha would never say something transgressive or against the God power, because again, I feel that he is one with the God power. But again, his mission as an avatar was to teach a different path, so you could still attain liberation if you couldn't grasp, if you couldn't accept those things. And again, this is the big difference between East and West. In the West, it's our way or the highway. If you don't follow our path and do exactly what we say, and you don't believe 100% what we're telling you, that Christ is the only one, well, you're going to hell. And that's really what turns so much of us off from the West. It took me also a long time to come full circle on the Christian truths. I embrace it. He is one of my absolute all-time ultimate favorite, if those are the right terms, saints. One with God completely, all that they believe, I'm right there with you. The only difference is I don't believe he's the only one. I don't believe that God cares about us so little that he would say, you know, you're going to get one shot at this and that's it. For eternity, all you're going to get is one shot. And if you don't, well, then screw you. It's eternal hell and damnation. These are simple-minded zealots that want control and power. This is not the time of the year, nor is this the class to go into the long-winded diatribe against the organizations of religion and how they came to be, which is all there in the book. It's all included. And I find them fascinating topics. And again, the fascination is that finding out how full of shit they are, what they're full of shit about, does not turn me off spiritually at all. It encouraged me. It made me look deeper. And again, my other favorite, which I often quote from Yeshua, is seeking ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Not sit on your ass and do nothing and the truth will come. Seek. And so for most of us, when we see the obvious lies and hypocrisies and fictionalized accounts, we automatically want to go further and see why. As a youth, my whole thing was, I recognized early on that priests and pastors and local religious people were like full of shit, hypocrites. All this war and raging in the world was all centered around this religion. I'm like, how can you not see this is the opposite of what you're talking about? And rather than just turn me off, it did turn me off. And I was rather agnostic, atheistic for a little while. Because like, you know what? Everything these guys do is completely hypocritical and it's evil. So I'm not doing that God thing. That's clearly the source of evil, the source of sin. And because I wanted the truth, I looked deeper and I spent my life invested in researching and studying. And that's where I found God. That's where I found Christ. Through doubt. Because he said, seeking you shall find. Knock, it shall be opened unto you. I was diving in to disprove it and show that it was all bullshit. But what I found was the truths, because they're undeniable and they're perfect and they're divine. And the bottom line is, in any way that you associate with the divine, it makes you closer to divine. You can't make it worldly. You can't. Doesn't matter if you're reading the Bible on the toilet in the bathroom. You can't make it dirty. It can only make you clean. So again, we're not going to go into, in this particular talker class or in this series, we're going to continue next week, this whole controversy of the hypocrisies of religion itself. The beauty is that as an Eastern spiritualist, as a Sanatana Dharmist, I fully accept Yeshua the Christ as a savior, as a guru, as a master, one with God. Again, the difference is I don't think he's the only one. There are many throughout history and ongoing, and definitely some are more significant. But the bottom line is any one of them that you surrender to will take you there. They will complete your soul's journey because they all have the power of grace. Before we get into grace, let's talk about those qualifications that all of the religions and philosophies agree on. What qualifies someone as a guru, as a true master? First of all, they are one with the knowledge. Yeshua, at 9 years old, was in the synagogue temple and began educating the rabbis at 9 years old. I can't quote a chapter and verse, but it's one of my favorite anecdotes that he wasn't rebelling or challenging them. He was commenting and sharing, elaborating on what they were talking about. And pretty soon they're gathered around him like, oh my God, this 9-year-old kid is blowing us away. He knows way more than we ever could at 9. It is not known or reported that Yeshua is known as being a student studying and devouring these books by 9 years old. It's because he is one with the knowledge. He's already one with the scriptures. He's already one with the truths. Anything he wants to verbalize and share, it's all there and he has access to it in an instant. You and I have to study and learn. And again, he's one with that knowledge already. True gurus, capital G, true saints, capital S, are one with the knowledge and the philosophy. My own guru. It is mind-blowing. I mean, literally staggering. It's so casual. When he rattles off quotes from the Upanishads, the Vedas, we're talking hundreds of scriptures in the Eastern Sanatana Dharma pantheon library of spiritual texts. There are thousands of verses, thousands. There are the main ones, the Vedas, Upanishads, ones that I can kind of rattle off their names to. There's also all these subdivisions. And as I watch him giving a discourse, he's just quoting stuff in perfect Sanskrit, by the way, which takes a lifetime to learn perfect classical Sanskrit. Lifetime. There's 3 different levels of it. It takes a lifetime to learn classical. Very few people can even do it, ever, in their lifetime. He did this when he was a child. And he's rattling these things off, quoting them from not just the Upanishads, but sub chapters of them. Not just the Gita, which he does often, the Bhagavatam, but sub chapters and verses and texts that scholars themselves, the revered scholars in India, are like, what? Where'd he get that? And they go look up, he's like, he's dead on. He's correct. He has it word for word, and he's just rattling off. There is no way when you see him do this that he's memorized this. There is no way. Again, he was doing this when he was in his 20s and 30s. It's literally impossible. I just said that saints conceal their divinity, and I'm like, he's not concealing too well to me. That seems pretty obvious. How can anybody else do that? And again, he does it in such a casual, informal way. He's just teaching you stuff, you know? But again, as a scholar myself, when I see it, I'm like, what the hell did he just do? Oh my God, how do you do that? And again, the Kashi Vidvat Padishat that asked him to be the Jagat Guru, they were, and this was when he was 33. Was he 33, 34? He lectured to them for several days, nonstop, to the point where these are the scholars of the Hindu scriptures, the authorities of them. And these guys studied their entire life, generations of knowledge in one room. And they were all scratching their heads like going, what is he doing? Like, we can't even follow this. And they're realizing when he's done that, as they kind of look into it, he's right about every part of it. Not one thing is wrong. And he's showing them not only is it all what's correct, but he's taking everything they had wrong and showing how they're all speaking of one truth. And that's when he became the original Jagat Guru and the Jagat Guru of all Jagat Gurus. There have been four others, Jagat Gurus. Jagat means of the world. So it's Guru of the world, not just your guru. But original Jagat Gurus, there had only been four before him. It's not an election like the Pope, where they light up some smoke and let it out of the window when they select somebody. There's been five now in over history, because it's not like when one dies or goes away, they get another one. If one appears and everyone's qualified, then they ask them, would you please take the role of Jagat Guru? Kripalu, this one behind me here, wasn't just given the title of Jagat Guru, which again can be a fairly common title in some regards. And I can't even come close to quoting the entire Sanskrit name. I have Prachark friends that can, and it takes like 30 seconds to rattle off his title, and it's complicated. Generally, in a nutshell, it means he's the guru of all gurus. They all answer to him. He is the definitive. And again, if you watch his speeches and discourses in video that we have on YouTube in this modern age, he does this so casually. He's rattling off this stuff that is just so high level, so complex, and yet does it in such an informal way that any child can kind of understand it. This is what true gurus do. The Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. I don't like to say just the Buddha because there's lots of Buddhas. Buddha means, Buddhi is the intellectual part of the mind. Buddha, the changing of the suffix, simply implies someone that has transcended that. So there's many Buddhas. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is the one that we know. And what the Buddhist path and the Christ path and Kripalu path is, they're not their own paths. They're teaching the eternal truths. And they take these complicated, philosophical, cerebral, deep, layered, profound topics that are ineffable, impossible to describe in human terms, and they make it seem so easy to understand. The Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, took the path of enlightenment, this complex, complicated, pointed discipline, and turned it into Four Noble Truths and an Eightfold Path. That's it. Everything you need to know is in Four Noble Truths and eight instructions. That's it. Everything you need to know for your entire existence. Quantum theory, quantum physics, I loved. I'm a hobbyist in it. So complex, so complicated. Bosons and atoms and all of this, it just goes on and on and on, you know? String theory, I love it all. I'm fascinated by it. But you definitely feel like you're going down a rabbit hole, and it's like, there's no end to this. I mean, there isn't one. Spiritual enlightenment, and liberation philosophies are the same way. It's ineffable. You can't explain it to somebody that doesn't understand it. And yet, again, Siddhartha Gautam Buddha shares 4 truths and 8 instructions. And everything you need to know is in those. That's it. That's all you need. In a similar way, you could say the tonic, K-A-N-A-K-H, the Torah, the 10 Commandments, again, as they simplified. Everything you need to know is there. What you need to know, and again, Yeshua, and what I like is the Sermon on the Mount. Everything you need to know. Yes, his life, the passion of the Christ, the teachings, everything he needs you to know is in a handful of sentences. Again, render to Caesar what is Caesar, render unto God what is God's. It's like, it's so much in that one single sentence. This is what avatars do. They give us the knowledge. They give us the, so again, the qualifications are number 1, or not number 1, but one of them needs to be that whoever you're following needs to be one with this knowledge, have access to all of it. Again, I'm a teacher, I'm a guide, all those things. I'm not a guru because I'm not one with it. I got to look it up. I got to study. I got to read from this book. Otherwise, I can't. I know it and I can elaborate and I talk at will. I don't need scripts and all that. I'm not working off a slideshow or cue cards, but that's because I've studied my ass off and it's accessible to me. And in some ways, on some things, I am kind of one with. Some things that I just intuitively know. And that's kind of, again, as I'm writing this book, so many of the things that I'm writing are like, it's like not like I'm doing it. It's just being produced. I'm just the vehicle. True scriptural texts are said to be done this way. They're revealed, not written. Vedavyas did not reveal, did not teach or write the Vedas. He revealed them. They're eternal. They exist. All he did was produce them here in this time so we could use them. But they already exist. Again, I'm not comparing myself in any other way or putting myself in that category. I'm giving you some examples. So one qualification that we can gauge and lower our concern about associating with the wrong path, the wrong tenant teacher, which in this day you better be careful, is are they one with this knowledge? Do they reverberate, reiterate, explain the original concepts? Are they giving me only their own version? Or are they giving me the truth? Again, as Yeshua is schooling the rabbis at 9 years old, and he wasn't making them feel bad. He's just elaborating. And they're like, what the hell's going on here? He knows way more than we do. And again, he's not teaching his own philosophy. He's teaching you the original philosophy. He's teaching you the core of it. It's trimming away and getting rid of all of the fluff and teaching you the core of it, the truth of it, which is simple rather than some complicated thing. And again, at 9 years old, he can do this because he's already one with this knowledge. So that's one qualification, is our teacher, is our guru, is our master that we're following one with the truth and knowledge? Is it just in his mind all the time? We like to think that the qualification would be, are they good people? Are they kind? Are they generous and all that kind of stuff? You can't go by that. I mean, there's Yeshua causing a total scene, you could say, within the temple when he entered the temple. A scene, turning tables over, rabble rousing. I mean, that virtually kind of gets him arrested, right? That's what caused the chain of events that gets him arrested. Number one, he's fulfilling a destiny. He needed to get arrested to fulfill the prophecy and his mission, because it had to end that way. And you knew that. So that's part of the reason he's doing it. But other than that, here's a peace and love being that represents the personification of love and forgiveness. And he's in Jerusalem, he's in the temple, he enters on the donkey, and then he's just like turning tables over and saying, this is, you guys are just, what is just really causing some problem, being very violent, very violent. He was violent, pretty violent, you know? So we can't look at a saint's behavior to deem if they are holy or not. It can be very misleading. They have intentions that we cannot perceive and understand. Again, was he truly upset and angry at the hypocrisy of what was going on within the Temple Mount? Or was he simply doing what needed to be done to fulfill a prophecy was going to get him arrested and have the crucifixion? We could have that sacrifice. We can't say. So again, it's very dangerous and risky to start to evaluate a saint or city saints, sadhana city or niche city saints' behaviors. You can't understand them. One, with knowledge. And secondly, do they teach, again, the original truths, the eternal truths, not some version? This is, again, what I was very cautious within my own book here, as I point out in a dialogue fashion. I'm like, well, if you're defining this, then aren't you therefore a hypocrite? Aren't you full of shit? I mean, you're just a human. Who are you to tell us this stuff in this book? I say, yeah, but I'm not telling you my version of stuff. I give you metaphors, analogies, and things you can relate to, worldly ones. Because if I give you ancient teachings, and you can't, again, all saints do this. They teach, and again, who's the face on that coin? Caesar. Well, then render Caesar what is Caesar's. Go pay your taxes. Don't cause a fuss over something so trivial. Render God what is God. Keep them separate. He's giving them a contemporary term to relate to so that they can understand the philosophy. I am not, and I will not, give my version of things. I will teach the eternal truths from the masters without any shift or change in them. And if I don't know it, if I'm not sure 100%, well, then I'm not going to talk about it. And secondly, whatever I'm going to share, I do this, again, true to their originalities. The true saints and avatars teach from the divine scriptures. They're one with them. They don't deviate from that. Again, some of the so-called controversy with Buddhism is that technically he was not teaching from the Vedas, from the Upanishads. Technically, he was, again, omitting that and leaving out the God part of that. He gets kind of a free pass in the Sanatana Dharma pantheon because he did it for a reason. So the pursuits of God realization will teach you, and then Sanatana Dharma, do not associate with the Buddha because that's a liberation path that's devoid of God. And we can't support that. But again, they're not sitting there saying, because he's all wrong and he's bad. No, they don't say anything like that. They say, yeah, you can do that, but if you want God too, all that along with a side of God, side order of God with that, well, then you could follow this path. So again, the saints and associates, they teach from the original scriptures because the original scriptures are eternal truths. They don't change. They don't get modified. And again, as I watch my own Kripalu in discourse on YouTube and I have a collection of DVDs throughout my life, my career as a devotee, that he's teaching all this stuff. And again, what he's doing is also casually and informally backing it up. He's explaining them, and then he quotes a verse from the Upanishads that verifies what he just said, what he was just teaching you. First, he's teaching you about the disconnection or an attachment from material relationships and things, right? Something very worldly, very contemporary. Giving you examples of being in school and family and paying bills and all this. Not very divine. And yet, as he makes a point, he backs it up with a direct quote in Sanskrit from the Vedas Upanishads or some other scripture. That is exactly in line with what he's talking about. And again, this is because all true gurus are providing us with this verification process for two reasons. Well, for countless, but a couple of them for me is that so that we can have confidence in them without distraction. It's not conflictual. Again, you can't find something wrong with it. It's credible. They're legit. And secondly, because they are the personification of the verses and teachings within the scriptures. They're not just personification of the God power. They're also personification of the verses themselves in Sanatana Dharma. For example, let's say the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, has, I don't know, 146 verses. I don't know what it is. I could be getting lucky and get it right. I don't know. It's surprisingly lower than what you might think. Whatever it is, every verse has a personified form to it. I'm getting emotional because that's just such a beautiful thing. Every verse, there is a saint, angel, you could say. Angel's fine with this term. There is a personified version of that verse. There's the words, there's the vowels and syllables and mantra of it that exists in the sound realm. There's some type of a light version of who knows what color it might be, and then there is a personified version. So every verse within the scriptures has an avatar, a divine being in a personified form that represents it. Clear example, the gopis, the maidens of Braj during Krishna's ascension 5,000 years ago. These are ignorant handmaidens that most of them were illiterate, uneducated, and all this kind of stuff, right? And yet, the truth is, they're pretending this way. The truth is, most of them are actual incarnation of the verses of the Gita and of the Bhagavatam itself. They are it. They're not only one with it, they are it. They're an expression of it. Again, Yeshua, our divine personalities are the same thing. They are the personification of the truth and divinity. So there's two factors. They only teach that which is spiritual. They're not teaching about material things. That happens to come along with it, but they are one with the knowledge, and their knowledge is genuine, authentic, and you can always revert back to the original genuine, authentic scriptural texts that are eternal. And again, there's a division. They're not here for your material welfare. If somebody says, hits a home run, I watch a lot of baseball, and they thank God for that event, technically that's incorrect. God had nothing to do with it. That's your material reality, not your spiritual one. Again, Yeshua, all of them, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, elaborating and reminding us all the time to keep them separate. Gurus and masters are here for our spiritual salvation, not our material. Indeed, I have seen, and what I share in my book, I think becomes rather undeniable, that there is some crossing over. Indeed, your material life becomes intertwined with your spiritual life to some point where they're enmeshed. I don't know where the dividing lines are between God's intervention and presence in my material life and my spiritual life. I never worry or have any concern with my spiritual life, I feel God and Guru within my heart and my mind all the time. And I don't. And as a stupid human, I am indeed occasionally frustrated. I'm like, okay, well, what am I, my mature life is, I mean, it's rough, man. What am I doing here? I'm trying to reconcile them. I know the knowledge is they got nothing to do with that. They're not involved with that. They're involved with your spiritual life. And I'm content there spiritually. But materially, it interferes with my spirituality. If I'm afraid, if I'm hungry, if I'm tired, if I'm sick, whatever it may be, well, then how can I live in a spiritual consciousness when I'm distracted by pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, stress, blah, 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 blah? I think that this is a case by case basis. The scriptures and all the saints and avatars teach us that there is a direct division between your material life and your spiritual life. And saints and avatars and gurus and masters and Christ do not get involved with your material life. They're completely separate. It's hard for people to read my story within the portal and not, well, that's bullshit. I mean, clearly there's a lot of divine intervention going on. I mean, paramedics on the corner, I mean, waking up on your birthday. I mean, there's all kinds of, come on. I agree. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I'm taught scripturally. That they all tell you, and my guru has told me to my face, literally to my face, as I had his darshan and my Swami teacher, literally to my face. Don't ask God for worldly things. Render to God what is God. Render to the world what is worldly. It's not that you will be ignored or rejected. They're simply saying again and again and again, all of them, universally, every religion, every philosophy, Buddha to the Christ to Kripalu, all of them saying they're not the same thing. Don't confuse the two. Your worldly life and your spiritual life, they're completely separate. And again, people read my book and my story and say, well, you got divine intervention going on all the time. And I agree. I can't make heads or tails of it. I cannot deny that clearly there's some type of spiritual divine intervention going on throughout my life all the time. Some good and some bad. No doubt. Some bad, some real bad. I don't know where the dividing lines are. There are mysteries that I cannot fathom. And I think sometimes, personally, for me, that's part of my journey, is that as good as I am at rationalizing, figuring things out, I'm very smart. And I can figure things out, even complicated divine things, with assistance from a guru and a master. I suspect sometime with them that they want to keep me guessing. And it's not easy because I'm pretty sharp. So they always give me enough stuff where I'm like, well, I can't make any sense of that. God remains a mystery. This again is part of the role of guru, savior, master. To remind you that no matter what you know, what you can know, you cannot know God without their grace. This gets to the final qualification. They're one with the knowledge. They teach nothing but spiritual things. They don't teach material things. That comes along with it along the way. Again, as a stupid human, not a guru, not a master, as I work with people, as a clinical behavioral specialist, I train people how to solve addiction, severe addiction, pathologies, all that kind of stuff. And for many of my clients, behaviorally, God doesn't even come into the conversation. I've had agnostics and even atheists that I've worked with, people from different religions, and many of them don't want nothing to do with that. And I'm fine with that. I'll teach you the psychology of it. Many others want nothing but the spiritual from me. And most of them want a little bit of both. I'm here to serve. Whatever's going to work. Whatever's going to help them grow and change and evolve, that's fine. What they do with it is up to them. I'm here to serve. So I can keep it totally separate. They're material, worldly, phenomena, issues, and problems and instructions, as well as the spiritual. You want both, you can have both with me as a teacher and a guide and a counselor. You want one or the other, you can have that. Again, I have some clients who seek me out just for spiritual growth, some that seek me out just for clinical issues, and most that want a little bit of blend of both. And it's different proportions. Some with a lot of spiritual and a little behavioral, some with the other way around. The point is that the guru, the master, you get answers to your material issues and concerns along the way, but that's not technically what they're teaching. I feel that the worldly life is a training ground. It's a practice field. It's not spiritual at all here in the material realm. But as I learn to love, forgive, be accepting, to live righteously as I possibly can, and dharmically, and properly, and spiritually, it increases and enhances my spiritual consciousness. I am under no illusion that my cat, who's sleeping over here, we're not going to go there. It's too far. He's sleeping right over there, keeping me company. I have no illusions that he is a material being, and my relationship with him is not soulful, not divine. But as I love him, take care of him, and truly passionately care about him, about you, and the people that I associate with, truly care from my heart, want you all to be at peace and have love and find God, to the point where it makes me want to cry, and I hate that. It's irritating. I wish I couldn't stand any of you. It's a training ground. This is my opportunity to be able to try to learn how to love unconditionally, which is what a saint and avatar does. They love unconditionally, without condition. They just love us. And I have my days where I'm like, why do you love me? I'm a piece of crap. I'm a good person. How these other people, I'm one of the good ones, and I'm still like, I'm nothing. How can you love me? I'm so flawed and so messed up. I'm not saintly at all. I want to get paid, and I want to get laid, and I want to have a good time, and all those things too. But yet none of it does so much for me. And God loves me unconditionally. And my guru loves me unconditionally. And I love everybody else that way too. To some extent, I feel like I love Chow Chow Bang the cat unconditionally. No matter what he does, because he's innocent, I care for him. Same with Brandon, my son, and certain people. Again, I don't see you as a stupid human. I do, but I see you, whatever your problems are, whatever your shortcomings are, as an ignorance to the truth. Again, as we see children that do aberrant things, say things like, we kind of laugh at it because it's kind of cute, but we correct them. Don't talk like that. We forgive them because they're children. They know not what they do. So they get a free pass. The guru, the Messiah, the Christ, the Savior, does that for us. They just forgive us. They know we're crap, and they don't see us that way at all. And again, as a parent, certainly I'm familiar with the concept of, yeah, but my son's different. My child's different. Like I just love him. Again, you see moms of serial killers on TV. They're like, well, I still love him. I'm like, what? Are you crazy? That guy's a piece of shit, man. But again, only a parent can understand. You can't help it. They're part of you. And I would say unconditionally. A cat is easy. He doesn't do anything evil. He's pretty cool. A person, if my son became a serial killer, yeah, I might love him on some level, but I'm not going to associate with him. I'm not going to hang out with him. I'm not going to be involved with him. You know, I like him and I'm involved with him because he's a good person and a fun person to be with. I like and respect him because I respect him and he respects me. But if he turned into a sinister, mean, callous, horrible person, again, I'd love him as a father does, but I'm not going to have anything to do with him. You see this all the time. There's conditions. People say all the time, "Oh, I love my wife. I love my husband unconditionally." It's like, "Oh yeah? What happens if they cheat on you?" Suddenly there's conditions, you know? Suddenly you've got parameters, which I think is a good thing. You should have standards. You should protect yourself. You should stand up for what is correct. As I tell in my story, the reason I left when I found this one incident that my soulmate had, which wasn't vicious at all, was simply because it wasn't correct. And I wasn't trying to govern or rule anything. I was simply trying to cope with it. We have an obligation to do what's right. Our gurus, our masters, tell us and teach us what's right and what's wrong because we're too stupid to figure it out. And again, they make it so simple. Again, the Christ message is forgiveness and love. How hard is that? Turn the other cheek. Again and again and again. He's teaching even up on the cross, and he's saying, forgive them for they know not what they do. Those are his final thoughts. Whether he's a human or God, bottom line is he's demonstrating for our benefit that in spite of all this, in the moment of absolute suffering that none of us would be able to deal with, he's saying, forgive them for they know not what they do. They're ignorant. They're like stupid children. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive them. That's my request. Not save me. Forgive them. We can't comprehend. So that again comes into the final category of what a true guru master is. And this is where the savior thing comes in. Grace. I was recently invited to a New Age church some months ago, local to me. And I thought, yeah, I'll go. Make little connections, see what it's all about, get out of the house a little bit. Let's just say it wasn't for me. It was, in my view, it was nothing wrong with it. They weren't doing anything evil or wrong. They weren't getting any philosophies wrong. For me, it was just very so fundamental, so elementary. I'm like, literally, what I was thinking while I was there is this is like kindergarten for spirituality. These are all adults that aren't even trying to go beyond the most fundamental basics, which again is a good thing in some ways, but it just wasn't suitable enough for me. And the woman that invited me, the difference between us is that I have a relationship with a guru. And she was saying, as the people in this New Age church were saying, I don't have any need for that. I've gone beyond that. As if they've evolved beyond it. They've improved. They now seek truth and light within. And I was there once too. And I have the exact same feeling that about them as they have of me. They feel that I am still an infant, still juvenile in my spiritual pursuits because I'm relying on an outside personality, a guru or a master. And I feel the exact same thing about them. They have not graduated to realize there's one thing that they cannot do on their own, and that is grace, capital G. And of course, to me, the obvious ignorance that all this stuff that you think you're doing on your own, seeing light within, attaining your own liberation and enlightenment, you have one teacher, preacher, book after another that you're all studying from. All the different paths. So you're not doing this on your own, are you? You're getting the knowledge and the path and the practice from some other source. And you're looking to divine sources, saints and sages and gurus and masters and enlightened personalities and illuminated ones and wise ones that are teaching you. So how are you thinking you're doing this on your own? Talk about prideful hubris. Oh my God. I politely said my goodbyes and I left and I did not go back. I did my own version of trying to practice acceptance and tolerance and forgiveness, for they know not what they do. This is part of the damage. The beauty that Christianity has brought to the world is they're saying more than almost anybody in this world, you can't do this on your own. You need a divine agent to interact, to facilitate your relationship and connection between you and God. You can't do this on your own. Yes, you are divine soul. You already are divine. You already are one with God, but you don't know it. Because your material mind is a messed up mess. Your soul is perfect. Your mind is a mess. And only the divine personality master guru with the power of grace can remove that ignorance. Again, the word guru means he or the one who chases away Maya. That means the one who chases away and destroys ignorance, like Shiva Shakti, that destroys the world. He's the destroyer, representing the destruction of ignorance, to allow us to see the truth. You can't do this on your own. Every bit of knowledge, everything you know, came from some source. Either was taught to you by someone that taught it to you, wrote it down, lectured you, whatever it was, you didn't dream it up on your own. Or your personal experience. You either heard it or you did it, and you learned things. I've learned by many mistakes in my life. I've done things wrong, and I'm like, well, don't do that again. That didn't work out. You need to turn right instead of left. Don't go that way again. So in that sense, you could say I'm learning on my own, and no teacher. But first of all, that's the long way. I could just use a map to get where I was going instead of getting lost and finding out the hard way what was wrong. And this is, again, I'm finding out the hard way. And even that is not completely on my own. I have the capacity for rational, reasonable, problem-solving, thinking, cognizance, because I've been taught how to do it. Math teachers, when I was a kid in math school, in math class, they're like, all of us kids were like, this is bullshit. Like, this is so stupid. Who's going to need this? I don't need this. The math teachers are always telling, you're going to need to know this. If nothing else, to teach you how to problem solve. And all my life, I'm kind of, in my youth, I'm kind of like, you're just saying that because you need a job. Because you're a math guy. That's what you do. Nobody needs it. I got a calculator. I'm fine. Indeed, while I don't need to know algebra or how to do it, and I haven't yet, it would have maybe helped a few times here and there, but ultimately I can work around it. Especially with Google. My God, Google away. But what the mathematician has that I struggled with and had to learn a different way was problem solving. Indeed, the irony, I'm a numerologist. That's my main modality for mystical, spiritual readings and insights. Numerology. It's all math. And yet, I suck at math. And it's because, again, I like numerology because it is fact-based. It is not magical. It is all very sensible, logical, reasonable, and relies on certain properties and values that don't change. Again, this is the beauty of science and physics and math, is that it doesn't change. It's reliable and it's consistent all the time. It's always the same. It's eternal. And it teaches us how to problem solve. Indeed, I have a very mathematical approach to solving problems, and I'm loosely lowercase master of solving problems. I have always had an intuitive, natural knack for being able to hear a problem and see a solution to it. I always have. So maybe a good counselor. If there is a solution, I can usually find it. And it's not magical. It's not because I'm a genius. It's because I simply say, well, deductive reasoning. Take these things away, and what you're left with is the thing that'll work. The shortest route between A and B. The most sensible one to get what you want. And so again, even in this sense, while I have learned a lot from my personal experience, again, we'll take drugs as the example. I was a hardcore dope fiend, needles in my arm, all kinds of shit, destructive, and I was good at it, pretty good. I mean, I still had a job and all that, and I do a lot of dope. And as I've written books, lectured, taught, counseled, made a career out of it to save people from addiction, and I'm an innovator in the field, doing things that nobody's ever done before. And you say, yeah, but I learned all that on my own. No, I learned my methods from studying the process as I went through it and studying from other people that I was helping through it. I watched, I learned, I listened, I paid attention, what worked and what didn't work. And it all came down to a central truth. One central truth. All this knowledge and experience that taught me about drug addiction and recovery. All of it. And I am a capital M master on that. I can use that term because it's a worldly thing. I'm a master at that. No one's better than I am. And I'm not, that's not a pride thing. It's like, there's so much knowledge about it, and I have that. And so, therefore, you can say I learned it on my own. But it all came down to one simple thing. When I was a child, 7, 8, 9 years old, I don't know. My mom said, drugs are bad. They'll ruin your life. Don't do them. And I was like, and I wasn't like, no, I bet you're wrong. I believed her. That seemed sensible. And yet I went and wrecked my life with them. My mom never did drugs. That's why I was like, you don't know shit. You never even did them. You don't know anything. You're square, man. Everything all I learned from all of my drug addiction, drug abuse, all of it. And I'm talking about drug abuse. I'm not talking about psychedelics. That's a different parameter. I'm talking about all the abusive drugs, the feel-good drugs, heroin and coke and speed and all that shit that is nothing but give you pleasure and wrecks your life. All I learned, and I get this from a lot of 12 steppers and all kinds of people in recovery, say, yeah, well, I don't regret it because it taught me what I needed to know. I'm like, well, that was a dumb way to learn it. So what do you need to go crash your car into a wall or not to do it? Really? Because all I learned from drugs and addiction was don't do them. That's all I learned. Guess what? That's going to always end bad. There's all my life in drug abuse, I was thinking, oh, they're not bad. I'm just not doing them right. Literally, that was my thing. No. I just got to figure out the right way to do them. If they're not bad, they're good. They're cool. I enjoy it. And it gives me great things. I just got to do them better. I'm the problem, not them. Nope. They're the fucking problem. They can't do anything. They're going to always need. And eventually my rock bottom made me realize capital R, it will never end well. It can't. Again, crashing your car into a wall is never going to end well. Never. If you need to do that to learn about your mortality or have a death experience, well, guess what? Do it another way, because that's a dumb way to do it. The knowledge, the ability to understand with our buddhi, our mind, our intellect, is endowed upon us by an outside source. And all that knowledge that help build that so that we can do and know things on our own is from another source. And again, the Buddhist is the most prevalent of this. Buddhism teaches you how to become enlightened on your own. Ashtanga Yoga, Shankaracharya, the first Jagadguru, original Jagadguru, Shankaracharya, teaches a path how to attain liberation on your own and is teaching you emphatically, like the Buddha is. Don't rely on anybody else. You're going to do this on your own. You cannot rely on anybody else. Nobody's going to make it happen for you. You got to do all the work. If you want something done right and you want it done now, you better do it yourself. And I subscribe to that. And yet, again, early on, with my inquisitive and I don't know, you could say doubtful mind, I'm kind of like, yeah, but aren't you contradicting yourself? You're telling me to do it on my own, but you're the one teaching me how to do it. I'm doing it through you. Without you teaching me this Four Noble Truths Eightfold Path, I'm screwed. I didn't even know this existed until you came along. And again, I often also quote the Buddha's saying that the best and worst day of someone's life is when they realize, capital R, understand, accept, that enlightenment is a real potential thing. The best day, because now you know why you're here, what you can do. The worst day, because now you know you will never be satisfied until you have it. And that truth, that epiphany, is not something you conjured on your own. And yet when he says it, you're kind of like, oh my God, that's what's wrong with me. Because I want to be liberated. I don't want any of this shit anymore. So he puts it in a context in one sentence that's like, oh, that makes sense. That's why I'm unhappy. And all the saints are doing this. The reason you're unhappy is not because you suck at living life. It's because there is no happiness in the world. You can't do it. It doesn't, again, you can't get happiness from drugs because it doesn't have it. It's temporary, it's fake. We cannot remove the guru, the master, the teacher from the role, from the process. It is absolutely essential. Which one? Pick your poison, pick your flavor, pick your brand. Know what you want and when you want it. And then follow the teacher that is the master at that, not some worldly personality. Again, I'm not trying to mislead people and give them some kind of false notion that I can give you these kind of things. I'm, as the book Within the Portal, again, on many layers. It's called Within the Portal because it describes my time in relation within the portal, the in-between dimension, between matter and spirit. It's also called the portal because it is a portal, a gateway, an entrance point to eternal truths. The beauty is that essentially, as I share with you just a couple sentences, honestly, few of the sentences in the passage that I read is all you need to know. All you need to know. I recently posted about the 23 eternal truths that I learned while on the other side. This is at the end of the dialogue with the other side chapter. Because when I got done describing what was revealed to me and shown to me while I was on the other side in a non-egoist state of consciousness, pure chitta consciousness. At the end of the chapter, I'm like, you know what? This is too important. Rather than this 8 pages of context and content, how about I put them all in a single sentence of what they are? And again, like the 10 Commandments, which used to be more, by the way, it wasn't just 10. The original ones were more than 10. And it's not just because of Mel Brooks's hilarious thing where he has Moses drop a tablet. Oh, I mean, 10 Commandments. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's funny as hell. History of the World, Part 1. Indeed, the true historical event was more than 10. And they were tenets, not just commandments. Thou shalt not kill. I'm like, really? You need God to tell you not to kill? Like, I'm pretty sure I can figure that out on my own. I mean, I don't need a tablet and a command to do it, but many people do. And even when they have it, they still do it. There were more. They were deeper, and all of them, from Yeshua the Christ to Kripalu to Shankaracharya to the Buddha, give us these tenets to live by, to progress on our soul's journey towards divinity. This time of year, with my little jingle bell, Santa's no guru. The guru that we're following this time of year is the guru of capitalism. It is such a bizarre time of year. I've always struggled with because I love it and I enjoy it. And I love getting gifts and buying gifts and giving. I love it. It's a fun thing. And it's magical since I was a child. And yet it is not only the most materialist time of the year, it's blatant and it is the polar opposite of what the core message is. Polar opposite. not just kind of different. It's a complete contradiction.
Never
To
even thought about
truly
that.
celebrate the high holiday of Christianity and the Christ message, there should be no gifts, nothing. It would simply be go to church, meditate, be introverted, nothing else. No celebrations. Not the true way to honor this, in my view, is to go introverted, not extroverted. These things confuse the message, and it breaks my heart. It's hard to see. And we all know it, and yet we all participate. And again, I like it too. I like getting and giving presents. I enjoyed putting up a Christmas tree and still do. I get Christmas lights outside my house. So in the next class, as we get towards Christmas, I'm going to share a little bit more elaborate on the concept. The next one I think is going to be called Gita or Gospels, Christ or Krishna. And again, I'm not going to sit there and propose to you the major differences. I'm going to reveal and help bring to light what they have in common and how they're telling the same story. And in many ways, literally the same story. Much of the Christ story was adapted or borrowed from the Krishna Gita stories. This does not undermine them. I'm not calling bullshit on the Christ story at all. He's a historical figure that walked and graced this earth. I have no doubt about that in my mind. None, not whatsoever. The details have been exaggerated and changed, and also many of them not exaggerated, but quite the opposite, undermined. But the parallels between Krishna and Christ, Gita and Gospels, they do not reduce my respect, admiration, and value of them. It increases them. Because once again, what I'm seeing is eternal truths all speak the same thing in different dialects. Again, I like to have fun. I'm no conspiracy theorist on YouTube, like trying to cause divisions in people. When we talk about the parallels between Christ and Krishna's story, we get to enjoy the beauty that God himself is always trying to teach us the same thing again and again and again in different ways, so we can just have the benefit of his grace to be able to evolve and progress. And now's a good time to wrap it up. Any questions, any comments?
Uh, you're telling me things I'm not aware of, I didn't know. I am sort of familiar with the subject, uh, not at the top of my head. You know. I I think we'll get into it. I think you're gonna get into it already without me asking it.
We are, and I'm pleased. See, it's like when you say that I'm revealing things to you that are kind of like revelations for you. See, that's beautiful, because I got to tell you, as somebody that knows these things, and again, as I see people talking about some of these things, that the few people that are out there online getting it right, the very few, and as a scholar myself, as a spiritual scholar myself, I don't get much value from that, because I'm like, you already know that. Like, I can't get anything new, right? And the cool thing is I don't really need it because I have the eternal truths. And so I forget. And thank you for putting value on what it is that I'm trying to offer, because I forget. I figure some of this stuff is so obvious and so well known that everybody knows. It's like I'm just regurgitating. I'm just being redundant. Like it's nothing new. And I forget that my own teachers, many of them, gave me these eye-opening epiphany moments that, again, and many of them were just worldly people. Alistair Crowley, for God's sake, did things, and I'm like, blew my mind, you know? And so I often am struggling with and wondering, why do I bother doing this? I can't give anybody anything new, but then there's these few people that are touched and moved and elevated to a new level that, again, for me, it's just stuff that I already know. And so that's refreshing and that's good to know. So thank you for sharing that. And certainly the cool thing is, again, I don't plan much of these talks. I get a concept, I get a topic, and then we roll with it because I know that all of them come back to the same central truth, all of them. And again, all the saints, gurus, and avatars, everything they teach us, all of it came back to one simple thing. Again, all the things Yeshua did, from born in a manger to dying on a cross, if that's what happened. All of this simply, it's going to sound so cliche and so simple and so corny. Love God and he will love you back. It's not complicated. And guess what? God already loves you back even when you don't love him. Love God and you will experience God's love. So I like to put it that way. When you love God, when you love his saints, which are one with God, they're not different. Again, Christ and God, Yeshua and God are one. No one gets to the Father but through me. No one, because you need the guru, you need the master. You can't get there. You can't attain it. You can't reach that because it's beyond you. You need the intermediary, not the priest at church, not the pastor. No, you need the saint. You need the guru. You need the master. No one gets to the Father but through me. And all of them teach the same thing, all the saints. You need them. And so we get this defined for us. Again, this time of year is just for that, to remind us. And again, the downside with the organized religion of the Christian holiday is that I love everything they teach. And I agree with it, except one. We're the only one. We're the only way. So, you African tribesman that's living in the bush that never gets access to Christianity, we're going to hell now. Because the only way you can attain God is through us. So we're going to go through the world. If you don't accept this, well, then you get to go to hell now. That's just, you don't have to be a scholar to know that that's crap. That's just crap, So again, thank you, because I struggle all the time. Again, as I wrote this book, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Who do you think you are? And again, when I see the shift that it has helped cause in the handful of people that have read it.
Well, there was a lot of things I wasn't aware of until I read your book.
See, and that's why I did it. That's why I was told to do it, is exactly that. Because, and again, I had the same thing when the books that changed my life, and everything from Steinbeck as when I was growing up to Ray Bradbury, Martian Chronicles. These things all had little tiny pieces. And every once in a while, there was a book or two that were like, gave me massive answers. And that's what I was hoping within the portal does. And I'm seeing it. That it may not be a bestseller, may never be, but 100% of the few people that do read it, the entire thing, and experience it, 100%, they all have a significant paradigm shift in their consciousness and awareness in their life and their perspectives. And there you go. That's what it's for, I guess. So anyway, it's always good having you here, and we'll stay in touch and we'll talk about more, and hopefully some people will see this and get more out of it.
Yeah.
All right. Jai Shri Radhe, glory to the essence of divine love. Go with God, man. Go with God. Another time.